Hey, folks. If I could go back 6 years to the day before I retired, there's some things I'd probably do differently. None of them have to do with getting rich. That really isn't a priority. There are things that nobody told me about until I already learned about the hard way. I'd build a life, not just a retirement fund. You know, money matters. Yes, it does. I've said that before, but so does purpose. And most of us, we spend decades preparing financially for retirement. We contribute to retirement accounts, we pay off debt. We hope we've saved enough. But what I didn't realize, retirement isn't just about replacing a paycheck. It's about replacing the life that the paycheck supported. When you stop working, you don't just lose an income. You may also lose a routine, daily conversations, a sense of accomplishment, e- even part of your identity. Suddenly you've got hours of free time. I wish I'd spend as much time planning what I was going to do every day as I did planning what I was going to do at work. You know, how I was going to pay the bills, just things like that. I should be asking myself questions. What gets me excited to get out of bed? What hobbies have I always wanted to try? Who do I want to spend my time with? And how do I contribute or even just stay useful? Well, I'd start developing hobbies before I retire, that's for sure. It's much easier than trying to discover them afterward. One of the biggest surprises is that free time doesn't automatically turn into fulfilling time. It doesn't. It sounds great on paper. You've got no schedule, got no boss anymore unless you're married. You've got no deadlines, that's for sure. But once the structure of your work disappears, you're left with a lot of open space that, folks, it needs to be filled. And that's where hobbies become more important than people realize. If you wait until retirement to start from zero, folks, you're not exploring hobbies. You're trying to fill a gap under pressure. Another thing I'd do I'd get my health under control while I was still working. I wouldn't wait until I retired to start. Big mistake. It's easier when your body cooperates. Folks, this is one of the things that doesn't feel urgent while you're still in working mode, but it becomes one of the most important factors in retirement. A lot of people think retirement's about having more time. And that's true in a sense, but what often gets overlooked is that you also need to have the energy and the mobility to use that time wisely. You can have money, you can have free time, but if your body's holding you back, your world gets smaller. And it doesn't usually happen all at once. It's gradual. You walk a little less because you're tired. You sit a little bit more because it's easier. You avoid certain activities because they're just uncomfortable. Then one day you realize your options feel more limited than they used to. Folks, here's the lesson. Don't wait until retirement to get healthy someday. Build your health now while you still have structure pushing you forward. I'd practice living on my retirement income. I'd do a test run for 6, maybe 9 months. One of the smartest things a person can do. I wish I'd have done it. Living for a few months strictly on what your retirement income is going to be. Not forever, just long enough to see what reality is going to be like. A practice run. It kind of forces you to see where your money actually goes, not where you think it goes. What spending habits are automatic versus intentional? Where you might need to adjust before retirement starts. Here's what's important. Before you retire, please try living as if you already have. Like I said, 60, 90-day test can reveal more than years of planning can. Another thing, I might strengthen some friendships. You know, folks, while we were working, we always had friends. We had work friends at least. But once we retire, a lot of those friendships disappear. This is one of those things you don't fully appreciate until you're actually in retirement. And then it becomes very clear how important it is. When you're working, friendships are built in automatically. You see the same people every day. You have coffee with them every day. Work quietly does a lot of the social heavy lifting in your life. Schedule regular meetups instead of waiting for somebody. Just stay connected with at least a few people outside your work life. Join some groups where interactions built in, clubs, classes, community activities. Don't assume people are too busy. Most, they're just waiting for someone to initiate contact. The lesson here is don't assume friendships are going to take care of themselves after retirement. The strongest ones are the ones you actually maintain now before work stops doing it for you. I definitely talk to my wife more about what our expectations are in retirement because retirement changes routines for both of you. This is one of the most important and probably most underestimated parts of retirement planning. You know, most couples spend years talking about money, bills, when can we retire? But very few talk about what daily life's going to actually look like once retirement begins. You you need to have conversations about things like how much alone time can each of us actually handle? How much do we need? What a normal day in retirement is going to look like for each person. How household responsibilities are going to shift. Boy, I found that one out quick. How we want to spend our time together versus apart. What travel, hobbies, and other routines are going to look like for both of us, not just one person. Don't plan for retirement as individuals, folks. Plan for it as a team. Now, I would have downsized my possessions before I had to. It's easier when it's your choice. This is one of those things that it doesn't feel urgent right up until it suddenly is. It's easy when you're working to accumulate things without even thinking about it. But in retirement, something shifts. You start to realize that possessions aren't just things you own. They're also things you have to maintain, clean. You have to organize them. I'm downsizing now. My shed's getting a lot emptier now, and it was a disaster zone. I put more stuff on Facebook Marketplace than I know what to do with, and it's people are buying it. That's fine. That's the whole goal. I want to get rid of it. But here's what I've learned: the less clutter you carry into retirement, the lighter everything feels, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Folks, don't wait until downsizing becomes a necessity. Something else, I'd create a weekly routine. Structure keeps the days from blending together. When you're working, your routine's built in, even if you don't think about it. Then retirement arrives, and that structure disappears overnight, folks. At first, that feeling feels amazing. You've got no schedule, you've got no pressure, you've got no alarm clocks. But folks, after a while, something else creeps in. The days start to blend together. You don't assume you're naturally going to fall into a routine after retirement. It doesn't happen that way. You have to make it happen. I would probably spend more time making memories than buying things. That's what we're trying to do now. Experiences tend to outlast purchases. Stuff feels good in the moment. New gadgets, home upgrades, even big purchases. But a few weeks later, that new thing becomes just another thing in the house. Something you got to clean and store and organize. Memories are different, though. They compound. A fishing trip with your wife, a goofy mistake that happened on a cruise, a day where nothing goes as planned. The stuff doesn't depreciate. It actually gets better with time. So if I look back 5 years from now, will I be glad I bought this, or will I be glad I did this? Next, I wouldn't wait for the perfect time. Retirement comes faster than most people expect, folks. It really does. There's always going to be something slightly off in your life. There's just not quite enough time. There's just not quite enough money. There's just not quite enough energy. Maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe your health isn't ideal. It's not the perfect plan. And because of that, a lot of life ends up in holding pattern. Looking back, I don't regret retiring. I just wish someone had sat me down and shared these lessons before I did. So, folks, if this video helps even one person make an easier transition into retirement, then it's worth sharing. So again, I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your day with me. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.